Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. Today we're going to be looking at a piece by the artist Max Hay. He is actually a really popular artist working primarily in the medium of digital rendering. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about center emphasis. We're going to talk about harmony through near symmetry. We're going to talk about the symbolism of the koi fish and then divine nature. So let's jump right into it. So whenever you're first met with this piece, we see this scene that appears to be some type of ceremony or ritual. We see this kind of chorus or choir of amphibians, it looks like frogs, all centered around this single orb here in the middle. And there's kind of a sense of radial symmetry here. Of course, they all revolve around the center, and we could even use the center as a reference, as a center axis for that. And so all of their attention, of course, is just directed on the center here. And I think that's incredibly important because it draws our attention to it, and it also implies that there's something really important going on here. So when all of their attention is directed towards that koi bubble, it draws our attention as well. So there is that sense of radial symmetry that kind of just converges on the center axis. They are all centered around that. So they're trying to emphasize the form to the highest degree possible. And so we also see a near-symmetrical spatial composition here. Of course, it's not perfectly symmetrical, but it is near symmetry. So the layout, the single orb and then kind of the circles radiate from that, those all really give a sense of harmonious balance and order. So near symmetrical spatial compositions, it always feels, really balanced, of course, really harmonious, and that really results in a really orderly visual experience in its final results. And so we see this orb here in the center, and this, of course, is the brightest source of light within the work. It just kind of casts the light in this really dark forest, and they're all just observing that with absolute ease. Just this incredible light coming off of that. Of course, water is pretty good at reflecting and refracting light. I always say that wrong. And so, this orb here is the strongest light source in the piece, and it really radiates from that center there. So in this orb, you see this kind of cluster of about 10 or so koi fish here in the center. And this is quite important because the koi fish represent strength of character. They represent perseverance. And so whenever we take a bit deeper look at that, we can see that the symbol of perseverance and strength of character is immortalized within this center orb here. So it's kind of like a controlled chaos. Of course, water has no set form. It kind of flows and morphs to its environment. But we see this sense of controlled chaos here because it's in this perfect sphere. And within that, of course, is the symbolism of perseverance. And I think this is pretty important. Of course, we see this really dark forest setting, and the light is in the middle against the dark forest. So in literal symbolism, the koi fish, of course, represents perseverance. So to persevere and be resilient in the darkest times of light, we could see that as the light of courage in the dark forest or the dark parts of life. So there's some kind of literal and then also metaphorical meanings that we could draw from that I think is really intriguing. We see what appears to be a temple or a sanctuary of sorts. You have this kind of choir, almost like an auditorium setting, just all centered around here. We have this pool in the center as well. And, they're all gathered in observation. And so they all gather at this temple. We could even see that, looking at near symmetry and harmony, we could even draw a connection for things like habit and ritual or tradition in that sense of order from that near symmetrical spatial composition. And so it's hard to say exactly what's going on here, but perhaps these frogs always gather through here as a kind of ritual or a tradition where they all come together and they all, of course, direct their priceless attention on the symbol of perseverance here. So I think it's really interesting. It feels like a temple or some type of sanctuary here. Of course, in the midst of the forest can represent just complete the unknown, but also the wilderness, of course. And things like culture or tradition is that light in the dark forest, or that sense of taming nature in order to build a society or a sense of culture to survive against nature. So I see a lot of different things that we could draw from this piece, but those are the ones I primarily see. And yet again, we see just another example of the divine elements of nature within this work. Of course, nature is divine in so many different ways, whether we're talking about the cycle of rebirth, whether we're talking about the birth of conscious life, and just everything in between, or just living beings in general. We, of course, as humans can create art, we can abstract into the future, we can make plans and things like that. But just any living being in general is just a really good testament to the divinity and the divine elements of nature. So I think that's really important whenever we're taking a look at this work. And if you don't think nature is divine, well, just go into the middle of a dark forest or a light forest and just stay in there for a couple of hours, and I promise you'll come out feeling completely different about the way you see nature and the way we interconnect with nature as well. So just a really stunning piece here, and just some incredible work coming from this artist. This really, really drew my attention. I've never seen anything like it, and to see him put this together in a 3D rendering, it's just stunning. You know, a really priceless piece, some incredible tones of the divinity of nature. And what I actually wanted to do was connect it just a little bit to one of his previous works we've showcased. So whenever we compare these two works here, it's hard to draw, you know, literal connections, but we can try and connect it and see what we can do here. So the first things I noticed are the elements of kind of that divine element within it. So you see light is emphasized in here with that koi orb or that magical aqua orb there, and then light is also emphasized here through the crystals. So, you know, in the work you kind of see this sense of magic or this sense of the divine in there, and that's almost always sensed through that light. And of course these are both digital renderings, so just look at how much of a diverse style he has. You know, in this one it feels like we're discovering the gemstones alongside this character here, and then in this piece it feels like we're almost a candid viewer, maybe even participating even in the ritual here that we're looking. So just some incredible forms coming from this artist. This one was the last piece that we showcased from him, and then this one is the one that we just showcased right here today. So just some incredible work coming from this artist. It really blows my mind how he can do these in that virtual rendering. And just, I think Max Hay, even though he has, you know, 80,000 followers, I still think he is incredibly underrated, and he really tries to go for meaning, symbolism, and form within his works. So just some incredible work coming from this artist. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. We talked a little bit about center emphasis. We talked about the symbolism of the koi fish. We talked about the divine elements of nature and everything in between. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. My name is Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.